Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Where's the response? I know, when the weather is very cold, we love to sleep. And it's very difficult to get out of bed, right? Especially when you're like tucked in your quilts and your blankets and it's so warm. And you know it's raining outside, it's going to be cold, right? So Shaitan is even more tougher with us when it's raining and it's cold. But at the same time, rain is a blessing, so make sure you make du'as, tons of du'as. All of the things you want to do in your life, this is the time to ask for it, right? In rain, inshallah. So, this semester I decided to, since this is a class of faith and worship, I decided to link it to the Quran, to some of my favorite surahs of the Quran. And since most of us we struggle in terms of understanding the Quran and having a deep relationship with the Quran, I thought why not make the class 2 in 1, right? So we understand the basics of faith and we understand some amazing meanings of certain surahs. Right? So one of the surahs we'll start with today is Surah Al-Rahman. And how many of you have heard of this surah before? Okay, good. And for a lot of people, this surah is actually one of the favorite surahs, right? The Prophet ﷺ said that this is actually known as the bride of the Quran. Bride of the Quran. Some surahs they have like specific names, and this is known as the bride of the Quran. So it's a really beautiful, beautiful surah. It's one of my favorite surahs also. It's one of the reasons I was motivated to memorize them. I highly recommend you all to also memorize the surah as we go along. So we're not going to be doing like 20 ayahs today. We're just going to be doing 5 or 4 ayahs. That's how deep the meanings of the Quran are. And if I go fast, I won't be doing justice, right? So what I'm going to start off with is this framework, like an overall summary of Surah Al-Rahman. And then we'll go into the details of each ayah, word by word. Okay, word by word. And that's how we need to, inshallah, have a relationship with the Quran. So what does Ar-Rahman mean? Rahman means, and memorize this carefully, right? So it's the exceedingly, come on, say it. Exceedingly, unimaginably, immediately, incredibly, merciful. See how deep the Arabic language is? And one word, Ar-Rahman, has so many meanings. If we just said the merciful, would that be doing justice to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No. Because Ar-Rahman has so much more in it. So let's look at each one of these. So exceedingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy exceeds our expectations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful with us that we cannot even imagine. It's beyond our expectations, beyond what we can imagine. Unimaginably, you can never imagine how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. Like all of us, we have mothers, right? And does anyone in this world love you more than your mother? No, right? Because she, took care of you, she's the one who gave you birth, and she was pregnant with you for 9 months, you were kicking her in the stomach and you were giving her bad, tough times, and she was going through mood swings and vomiting and all of that, right? But then when you came out into this world, you were the most beloved thing to her. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is 100 times more merciful than your mother. Right? Can you imagine that? We can't imagine, honestly, we can't imagine. That's why I said unimaginably merciful. Immediately, what does that mean? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, like I can be a merciful person, but one day I'm driving along the road and this guy really pisses me off, right? And I get angry. So at that moment, was I merciful? No, right? I probably said something wrong to him or did something bad, right? Maybe I honked, like really bad. So at that point, I wasn't merciful. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the meaning of Ar-Rahman is that He is always immediately merciful. So this second, this moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful with us. And if it wasn't for His mercy, maybe the ceiling would collapse. If it wasn't for His mercy immediately, this earth could swallow us this moment. Can that happen or not? Anyone has doubts that can happen? How many of you think the earth is possible to swallow us right now, this moment? Is it possible for the earth to do that this second? Yes? You all agree? Is it possible for any one of us to have a heart attack and die this moment? Yes. Who's keeping that heart beating all the time? Who's making us inhale and exhale every second? Who's giving us the blessings to see? The blessings to be able to learn and comprehend and come to this class and learn about His words. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Immediately merciful and incredibly merciful, of course. Right? So they're all like different meanings of this beautiful name of Rahman. Now when we look at the central theme, it's very important for us to look at the central theme of the surah before we go into the first ayah. Okay? And usually, when we read the Quran, what do we do usually? Just open the Quran and start, you don't understand what you're saying. But when you read it, let's say you read a novel, what do you do usually? Let's say it's a new novel, it's a brand new novel you got as a gift. What do you do with it first thing? No? Do you start from page 1 and read it? Absolutely. You flip it up, flip it around, and you read the, what do they call it?
Summary.
Yeah. You read that summary, the blurb, it's called?
Yeah.
New word for me. Okay? So you read the blurb or blurb? B. So you read the blurb, okay, and you probably skim through it just to see what kind of, is it fat, is it, what kind of words is it? And then you start reading, right? Maybe there's an introduction to the author also, right? Sometimes we read the introduction to the author also. And then we start reading chapter 1, right? With the Quran, why don't we do that? Have you ever thought about it? Why don't we look up, and by the way, some scholars have done detailed studies on this subject here. And I'm so in love with this subject, honestly. Unfortunately, a lot of these books are in Urdu. I don't know how to speak Urdu. So, what I did was I made a deal with my mother. She speaks Urdu. So I said, okay mom, every night when the kids go to sleep, me and you, one-on-one, we go over these books and you read them to me and I take notes and then I translate to English and then I present to you. Right? So there's a lot of work being put into this, by the way. Months of work is being put into this, so I hope you appreciate that. So the first theme that is very clear in the surah is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about His miraculous signs, His reminders, His blessings to us. And there's two types of people. There's people who thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His blessings. There's people who don't thank. The people who thank are known as believers, and people who don't thank, that's basically one of the central themes of the surah. And this is the last ayah in that surah. تبارك اسم ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes Himself with two names, ذو الجلال and ذو الإكرام. Ikram means someone who is very, very honoring. Okay, someone who's honoring, someone who's very nice with you. He's known as Kareem, okay, in Arabic. And so that applies to who is Allah being nice with? The believers. And Dhul Jalal is more of like fear of Allah and His authority and His power and His majesty. Sorry? Yeah, I need to go. So Dhul Jalal applies to who now? The disbeliever, because it has to do with power and majesty and His authority over us. So even this final ayah summarizes the whole surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be, just and tough with those who reject His miraculous signs. He's going to be very honoring and very nice with those who, admit to Allah's blessing. And by the way, the opposite, you all know shukr, right? What does shukr mean? Gratitude or thanks, right? Even in Urdu, shukr, they say, right? Shukriya, also, right? And so the opposite of shukr in Arabic is kufr. So that is the essence of disbelief. And let me ask you a question. Are we thankful today? Or are we people of complaints all the time? Are we people of thanks or are we people of complaint? Complaint. But what are some of the things that we complain about? Random things that we complain about. For example, the internet is slow. Right? Or I have a bad hair day, right? For sisters sometimes. Or, you know, the weather is so hot, the weather is so cold. What are other things to complain about? I have an iPhone 4, my friend has an iPhone 5. I have an iPhone 5, my friend has an iPhone 5C or 5S, right? My friend has the Xbox 360 and I have Nintendo, the old one, what's it called? Yeah, DS. I have PS3, my friend has PS4. Are these things that we complain about? Yeah. And subhanAllah, even my 5-year-old daughter, no, she starts complaining about these things. She says, Baba, you know, my friend has a Hello Kitty bag. I don't have one. Can we go get one? And then the next month, Baba, my friend has a Dora bag. Can I get one also? SubhanAllah, and they're just constantly complaining, and we forget to thank Allah. And then we say Allahu Akbar in our salah, we say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. We don't feel that we're thanking Allah. When we say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, you guys, all of us need to stop. Say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen and stop. And think about all the blessings Allah has given you. And then move on, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Think about how merciful Allah is with you. How much He's done for us, how much blessings we have. You know, there's kids in Syria dying of cold weather today, living in tents. There's a kid, I saw his interview, he was videotaped, eating a carton. You know what a carton is? This is a carton. He was caught on video eating this. And they asked him, why are you eating this? He's like, they killed my mother, they killed my father, they killed my brothers, they killed my sister. I have nothing, all I have is this, and I'm hungry. I'm going to eat it. You know? So this is the reality. There's people who, you know, 5 years ago were living just like us, right? People in Syria, weren't they living like just like us 5 years ago? And look how things change. Never ever take anything for granted. Be thankful today so that you can, inshallah, be counted among those who truly are the believers. The other part of this, other central theme is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Quran in 3D. Okay, there's 3 dimensions to the Quran. Where there's 3 types of Quran in our lives. One is the Quran that we read, you know, the book itself, right? Or in today's world, there's the digital Quran, the apps. Okay. For a lot of us, we complain that, you know what, this book is difficult to read, you know, translation is bad, I don't know Arabic, you know, all these excuses we have. But then Allah says, you know what? There's 2 other types of Qur'ans. There's the Qur'an that you see externally. You can tell me what is meant by that. Outside the Quran, like what? Like the cover of the Quran? Outside. No, simpler than that. Walking outside the room, outside this classroom, all the way outside. You look up at the sky, and what do you see? And what are these?
A blessing of Allah.
These are signs of Allah, right? So you know the Quran it consists of what? What is the Quran consisting of when you read it? What are these called? Ayah. You know what the meaning of the word ayah is in Arabic? Sign. What's it a sign of? Have you ever thought about it? Why do we call it ayah? What is it a sign of? It's a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's supposed to be a reminder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what the Quran does. It reminds us of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a person who does not read the Quran, is he going to be reminded of Allah? You're not going to be reminded. If you're praying without understanding what you're reading, are you going to be reminded of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No, and that's where shaitan gets you then. So it's like, either our heart is filled with remembrance and that shaitan has no access, or our heart has no remembrance and shaitan has full access. And that's when you get into trouble. That's when you get into, you know, your sins and your evil actions. Is that clear? Right? So ayah, if you don't understand to read the ayah, Allah is saying, look outside for my ayat. Look at the birds when they fly. That's an ayah. Look at the trees, how beautiful they are. Look at the flowers, how many different colors of flowers are there. You know, when you look at Animal Planet, look at the fish in the sea. How many different colors, how many different shades. Look at Maghrib time, when the sky changes from blue to orange to pink to yellow, gray. Unfortunately, we've become so desynthesized, right? We don't appreciate these ayat anymore. So neither do we appreciate Allah's written words, right? Or spoken words, which are today we're reading. So we don't appreciate the Quran. And when we see the birds, we're like, yeah, it's just birds, man. What's wrong with you? Are you fine? Right? It's just birds, it's just a tree, it's just a fish, it's just a flower. Right? We don't feel something yet. So even external ayat don't hit us deep in the heart. And then Allah said, okay, this is not hitting you, this is not hitting you in your heart. Look inside of you. There's signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inside of us. It's that heart that's beating. All of you, put your hand on your heart. Feel the beats. Are all of you feeling it? Yes? Who's making the heart pump? With no batteries, no charge, no petrol, no gas, nothing. Right? Our ability to smile, our ability to see, our ability to smell, our ability to breathe, these are all internal signs. So you get it? You get the picture? These are all signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, after looking at these signs, Allah wants this from us only. This surah is about gratitude. This surah is about being thankful. It's about seeing the glass. You know, if I had a glass here that's half full, right? There's two types of people. There's people who will say, you know what? The glass is still half empty. Wow, mashallah, alhamdulillah. I still have half of the glass left. But then people who complain, people who are ingratitude, they'll be like, I only have half left. I want a full glass. Right? So there's two ways of seeing this world. And this, like, gratitude is the beginning of our deen. It's like, you know, ABC, how many letters in the alphabet? 26, right? A is the first letter, right? Gratitude is A in the alphabet. It's step one. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts the Quran with this. He says, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. That's your A. If you don't have gratitude in your life, guess what? B, C, D, E, F, G, does it matter? Because this is the foundation. Gratitude is the foundation of our deen. So we have to be people of thanks, people of gratitude, inshallah. So that's the central theme. We all fine with that? Any questions? Feel free to interact. I don't want anyone falling asleep, please. Okay? Let's move on, inshallah. And let's put the phone on airplane mode so you guys don't see my personal messages also. Okay. Anyway, the surah before this is Surah Al-Qamar. Now what's amazing about the Quran, sometimes to understand the surah you have to look at where it's positioned in the Quran, in the Mus'haf. And Surah Al-Rahman comes in between two surahs. Surah Al-Qamar is before Surah Al-Rahman, and Surah Al-Waqi'ah is after Surah Al-Rahman. Alright? Surah Al-Qamar, Qamar means moon in the Arabic language. What do you guys think that surah talks about?
It could be the miracle that Moses said.
What happened? What was the miracle during the Prophet's time? The moon split. And people saw this. And the disbelievers saw this. And yet, they didn't believe. How messed up that was. Seeing the moon split, and they didn't believe. They didn't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sending a messenger to them, their own people. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a messenger to their hometown. Right? With the Quran, the most amazing book, in their own language. You know, the people of Quraysh, they didn't need like sessions like this to understand what the Quran means. It was like direct impact. They understood the words. So look at how many blessings they had. Yet they rejected this. And they used to tell the Prophet, show us signs, show us signs. And then Allah showed them a sign. And what happened? They still didn't believe. So that's showing a sign was just an excuse. What was deep inside? What was the problem? Arrogance. They wanted to party. You know, they want rules. They want someone telling them you're a slave of Allah. You know, they want to enjoy life. They want to chill. Okay, they don't want to live a life of a slave. Basically, that's what it is. Because Islam comes with a lot of rules and regulations and authority. They didn't like that. They wanted to relax. They wanted to enjoy. They wanted to enjoy their status in society. So that's Surah Al-Qamar before that. And after that, Surah Al-Waqi'ah ends with an amazing reminder about the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the stars in the sky. And He says, I swear by the location of the stars. And Allah says, and this swearing that I'm doing, it's an amazing, amazing surah. Location of the stars. Who knows the location of the stars? Far away and so vast, you know, this universe, right? And so Allah swearing by the stars, and He says the Quran, this Quran is an amazing book. It's a great book. إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ عَظِيمٌ. Why did Allah swear by the stars? Because the Arabs used to use the stars to do what? Navigate. They didn't have GPS and Google Earth back then, or Google Maps. They used to travel at night, not during the day, at night, because they had a GPS system from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, naturally, in the sky. And by the way, even in today's modern world, pilots, you know pilots that fly planes, they actually, if this manual and this whole plane collapses, like all the digital stuff collapses, they still use, they're trained to use the skies and the stars to navigate. It's a natural GPS system from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Arabs used to use stars for what it said? Navigate. And why do you navigate? Because if you don't use that, then you're going to get lost. It's as if Allah is telling us, just like you use the stars to navigate so you don't get lost, this Quran, you need it in your life so that you don't get lost. Right? Your life without the Quran is like that darkness without the stars. You get lost. You don't know where to go. You see how amazing these statements are? So, the previous surah and the next surah, Surah Al-Qamar, Surah Al-Waqi'ah, we're talking about what? Ingratitude, examples of ingratitude. And right in between was the Surah Al-Rahman, which talks about people where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us of not being grateful. When was the surah revealed? It was revealed during the 4th or 5th year of prophethood. So the Prophet ﷺ, God's revelation at what age? 40, right? So he was probably 45, 44, when this happened. And for your information, the first 3 years, or the first 2 to 3 years of prophethood was known as the secret stage. Islam was a secret. It was like shh, don't tell anyone I'm Muslim. Let's go. And they used to gather in a place called Dar al-Arqam. It was like a small house. This person whose name was Al-Arqam ibn Abi al-Arqam, and they used to sit and the Prophet used to teach them. And there was like 4 or 5 people started growing the bed, 10 people. Very secret. Until the command came to the Prophet ﷺ by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ, stand up and deliver. Right? That's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Prophet after the 3rd year to declare openly, go out to the Kaaba, talk to the people of Mecca and proclaim the message. And guess what came after that? This stage. The kuffar started denying. They started saying, you know what, Prophet, you're crazy. And to Majnoon, which means crazy. You're a Sahir, which means you're a magician. Kahan, you're a soothsayer, right? Someone who foretells the future. Or you're a poet. They started accusing him of all these different accusations, right? Why? Because they didn't want to believe. They didn't want to believe the message. So they started doing what we call character assassination. When you don't like a message, the best way to eliminate that message is to eliminate the person who is proclaiming the message, right? So they didn't have any any objection, or they couldn't object to the Quran because these were amazing words, right, that really impacted them. So what did they do to eliminate this whole thing? Muhammad, they used to say, Muhammad is a liar. Muhammad is crazy. Muhammad is a magician. Right? So that's what we call character assassination. So it's very important for you to understand when this surah was revealed. It was revealed in this stage, when the Prophet was being accused of all these things, when the Prophet would be giving them so many signs and reading the Quran onto them, and yet they were what? They were denying. Stubborn people. Okay? Very, very stubborn people. So that was the audience that this surah was talking to. Very important for you to understand when surahs are revealed who the audience is. Because when you understand who the audience is, you appreciate the language of the Quran and how it's talking. So let's move on. Some of the layout of the surah. I love this part, right? So if you've been sleeping, just wake up for this part. It's really cool. So the surah is broken down into 5 parts, or 5 chapters, or 5 paragraphs, whatever you want to call it, right? Or 5 sections, I call it. The first section talks about what? Say it out loud. Second section. Third section. Fourth section. Fifth section. Okay, so you guys understand criminals, right? Believers are believers, and then highest ranks are the VIPs of Jannah, basically, right? May Allah make us all of the VIPs of Jannah, right? Now, the surah right after this, Surah Al-Waqi'ah. And we won't go into detail because we'll talk about that next class, but do you guys notice something strange?
Yeah, it's like the Surah Al-Waqi'ah goes in reverse of when Surah Al-Rahman.
Absolutely. It's exactly in reverse. It's like a mirror image of Surah Al-Rahman. So Surah Al-Rahman and Surah Al-Waqi'ah are actually pairs, mirror pairs of each other. Now, did that happen by chance?
No.
Did the Prophet sit down one day and try to make up this order and to, this is the miraculous order of some of the Surah Al-Quran. You see how amazing this book is? Right? We usually read these surahs, we skip through them, not realizing these subtleties, really appreciating this stuff. So, in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks questions. That's, even teachers usually we ask questions. Why?
To make us
Start thinking, to keep you awake, right? Keep asking you questions every now and then, right? So similarly, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks questions to the reader, to the believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks them, don't you see how amazing you are a drop of water? We are all created out of a drop of water that comes from the man and the woman, right? The drop of sperm that comes out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses that word. You forgot that you were a drop of water? Filthy fluid? And then he says, did you forget? Don't you see how these plants come out? Do you think you are the ones who are planting these? He asks this question. Then he says, don't you see the water you drink? Who sent it down from the skies? And by the way, the water, how does it go up in the skies? From where? And have you ever had a glass of water from the sea?
No.
Why not?
It's too salty.
Okay, who takes that salty water up in the skies and turns it into sweet water and sends it down? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You ever thought about that? Imagine if salty rain would come down all the time.
Isn't it acid rain?
Hmm?
Isn't it so clean water?
Yeah, but you could open your tongue and try it. Marnie does it, right?
You have to worry about being like.
It's clean water. And, I mean, of course there's a environment, but it's not salty. Have you ever tasted? You want to go out and taste the rain just to prove the point? Trust me, it's not salty. Okay? Right? I like to taste rain water. So Allah asks us this question: this water that you're drinking, did you forget who set it down for you in the first place? And then he asks another question: this fire that you make to keep yourself warm, who made the tree? Because back in the day they used to use the wood to make fire, right? Have you ever done that experiment in school? With the wood, you basically do this, you put some leaves, and then you make fire. Right? So Allah asks questions. That's His way of tackling this thing. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah says what? 31 times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks the question in Surah Al-Rahman. It's the famous question. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? Which favors, which blessings, which miraculous signs of Allah do you deny? He's talking to the disbelievers how many times? 31 times. Over and over and over. So he presents an ayah, like a miraculous sign, a mercy, a blessing, and then he asks this question. And then another blessing, and then this question. Another blessing, and then a question. Usually, how many of you have stubborn friends that you know? Okay, stubborn people are very annoying, right? Because no matter what you do, they won't listen. So you tell your stubborn friend, study. You have an exam tomorrow. She's like, no, I'm on Facebook. No, I'm not going to study. Tell her study again. And she's like, no, I'm chatting with my friends. You know. You tell her study again, and she's like, no, please leave me alone. Don't bother me. Stop bothering me, okay? You nerd. Right? And then what do? You stop. You're like, fine. I'm going to study. You go wherever you want. You do whatever you want to do. Why? Because stubborn people, although we know they will never listen to us, we try 1, 2, 3 times and then we give up. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give up with the disbelievers? That's one of His signs of His mercy also. Like even in this class, right? Let's say for example, one of you, Brother Aqil comes to me after class and says, Brother Fahad, you know what, this whole thing about Surah Al-Rahman, I didn't get anything you said today. So I'll be like, okay, Brother Aqil, let's stay after class. I'll spend half an hour with you. And he's like, okay. I have to repeat the whole class again to Brother Aqil. After we're done, I'm like, Alhamdulillah, I repeated the second time. He says to Brother Fahad, you know what, I'm so sorry, but I didn't get anything, please help me out. So I'm like, Brother Aqil, you know, it's the weekend, I gotta go home and I'm with my family, but you know what? Tomorrow after work, I'm willing to spend some time with you. And he's like, okay. So I invite Brother Aqil to my home, and we sit and I do it over 2 hours, very slowly. Slowly. And then at the end of the session, Brother Aqil says, Brother Fahad, still, what am I eventually going to do? Brother Aqil, get out. Right? Right or no?
Yeah.
Repeat it once, twice, 3, and then you're like, this guy's just taking me for a ride.
We just did it happen.
But does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do that with the disbelievers? That is one of His biggest signs of His mercy. Do you guys all see that? It's so beautiful at this point, right? So Allah's mercy. And then the concept of seeing is believing, right? The disbelievers would have this, you know, fake trick with it, tell the Prophet, you know, show us a trick, show us a sign. Even the disbelievers during the time of Musa and Isa would say things like, you know what, show us Allah, we want to see Allah, then we'll believe. And you know, the people of Isa would say, send down a table from the sky with some really nice food. Right? And Allah would send down a table, by the way. Surah Al-Ma'idah, which means the table. Allah sends down a table from the sky. And they eat the yummy food, the burgers and the chips and whatever, right? And after they finish the food, do they believe? So this is just say, now we'll see it when we believe it. But Allah split the moon. Do they believe? No. They will never believe without seeing. And a very important point here is that we don't need to see to believe, and I'll prove it to you. Let's say, for example, the fire alarm rings in this classroom. I don't know if there is one. Let's say there was one. I think that's one, yeah. So let's say, you know, our fire alarm starts ringing. What are we all going to do? Why? But did any of us see the fire? So that's human beings, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a mind. We trust the alarm signal. Right? If someone walks in the room and says, guys, there's a fire, so let's go out, are we going to believe him or not? Let's say there's a cat with us in the class. She's with us in the class. And a fire alarm rings, and someone walks in the room and says, guys, there's a fire outside, let's go. All of us will go out. Will the cat go out with us? What do you think?
If there's a real fire.
No, she can't see it. She's with us in the room. There's a cat, there's a dog, and there's like an elephant with us in the class. Are they going to walk out the room because of something they've heard? All they've heard is there's a fire. Are they going to walk out the room? That's the difference between human beings and animals. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the ability to think and to analyze. Whereas animals, they have to see. Right? So seeing is not believing for us. We believe the unseen. Alright, let's move on. So this is where it gets really interesting. So this is sort of the whole of Surah Al-Rahman. I'll show you like a very helicopter view of Surah Al-Rahman, broken down into the 5 sections. Okay? Remember that? Greatness of the Quran, Allah's favors, criminals, believers, and the VIPs. The highest ranks. Alright? Remember this order, by the way. It's going to help you memorize the Quran. So what are we going to do in the remaining 10 to 15 minutes? We're going to be talking about one section, which is the greatness of the Quran. Let's see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the greatness of the Quran. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. So these are the first 4 verses of the surah which talk about the greatness of the Quran. Allah starts off by saying Ar-Rahman. By the way, this name in itself is an ayah. Notice Ar-Rahman and then the ayah stops. It's as if Allah wants us to stop and think about this name. Think about Allah's mercy. Extremely, abundantly, incredibly, immediately. Remember all those? Think about that. Appreciate it. Ponder upon it. And ask yourself, are you grateful? Okay, this is how we're supposed to read the Quran. Ar-Rahman. And then Allah moves on and says, Allama al-Quran. He taught the Quran. Now wait a minute, what does that mean? He taught the Quran. And you know, the people of language, they say that, you know, there's something called subject and predicate. You guys study that in English?
Yes.
So if I say, Brother Akil, blank, blank, blank. Is that a complete sentence? Why? Because the subject is there, but what's missing? Predicate, right? So it's as if Allah is saying, I'm the subject, Ar-Rahman is the subject, and what's the predicate? Allama al-Quran. Allah's Ar-Rahman because He taught us the Quran. Now let's dig deep inside and understand this verse, right? So number 1 on the list, it's as if Allah is saying, you want to know all the blessings that I've given you? Can we ever count the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What's the first thing Allah mentions in this surah as His blessing? Teaching the Quran. Okay. Him teaching us the Quran is the biggest blessing that we should be thankful for. Let's try to understand what that means. Usually Allah says, I've sent down the Quran. You know, like Surah Al-Qadr, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. We sent down the Quran upon you. But here He's saying, I've taught you the Quran. What's the difference? Is there a difference between teaching and sending down? I could give you this book and say, alright, you have an exam tomorrow. Right? That's kind of like sending down, right? Or informing. I'm informing you. This is what you need to do. Whereas teaching requires what? Time. What else? Skills. Absolutely. Patience. A lot of patience. Okay? So yeah, you guys covered everything. So teaching requires all of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I didn't just send down the Quran, I'm actually teaching you the Quran. Allah has taken the responsibility to teach us the Quran. Now, another thing is teaching versus informing. Is giving information the same as teaching?
No.
Why? What's the difference?
Informing is just like one word, and teaching is like oh, you know.
Exactly. You guys have boring teachers at school?
Yeah, definitely.
Most probably these boring teachers, what they're giving you is information. What is missing? They don't know how to teach. Okay? You could be the smartest person in the world in math, but if you don't know how to teach it, are your students going to understand anything? So that's the meaning of allama, which means to teach. And by the way, allama also means to teach over a long period of time. Okay? So it takes time, it requires patience. You know, don't rush with the Quran. It's such a dense book, there's so much in it. Sometimes we want to go quickly over the surah and finish it, just to, you know, say, yes, I finished Surah Al-Rahman today, right? Or yes, I did the khatm of the Quran. Or yes, I finished the juz, right? That's what shaitan wants us to do, by the way. To just read for the sake of getting the reward of every letter. But the purpose, the real purpose of the Quran is for us to understand and to take our time to learn the Quran. And by the way, it's an unbroken chain. Now listen to this carefully, right? You are learning this surah from who? From me. I've learned this surah from my teacher, not from the Quran. I have a teacher, okay? So I have a teacher, and that teacher had a and that teacher had a that teacher had a teacher, and 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 a teacher, times 100. And then that teacher had a teacher who was maybe one Sahabi. And that teacher had a teacher who was maybe Umar al-An. And that teacher had a teacher who was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu had a teacher who was Jibreel alayhi salam. And Jibreel alayhi salam had a teacher who was it's an unbroken chain. You see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us now? All of this knowledge is His. It just came down through chains. That thought itself gives you shivers, you know, that Allah Himself is teaching us. And you know, sometimes we brag about, you know what, I graduated from this and that school, or my cousin graduated from Harvard School, and you know, my teacher was so and so, and you know, my degree is from Stanford or from Yale or whatever, you know, Ivy League schools. People brag about that, right? Why? To get praised, because it's a sense of honor, a sense of recognition, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, I am your teacher. Congratulations. You are my student. I have chosen you to be my student. What bigger honor than being a student of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Isn't that amazing? You have Allah. Is there a better teacher than Allah? And it's not like Allah has hired like someone to teach you. No, it's directly Him. Allah saying, I have taught the Quran. And then Allah says, I've taught the Quran. He doesn't say who. So who is it for? What do you think the answer is? It's the human beings, the jinn, because this surah talks to two main audiences, by the way. Besides the disbelievers, it's the jinn and the ins. For those of you who don't know what jinns are, I mean, I haven't seen one, but we know that they are made of fire, and we know that there are believers and disbelievers in jinn. So they have their own kind of accountability on the Day of Judgment. They'll have their own accountability. Some of them will go to heaven. So there's good jinn and there's bad jinn. There could be jinn listening to the depths right now. And there's jinn like outside in bad places also. So not all jinns are bad, but Allah talks to both of them. Right? That's why فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Whenever the an comes in the end of the Arabic word an, that's for the dual, pair. He's talking to the ins and the jinn. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I'm not going to be specific. I'm going to teach the Quran. Whoever is willing to learn, come. It's not just specific to the believers. Even the disbelievers can learn and get guided from the Quran. Right? I taught the Quran. So, the question here is, Allah has made the offer. Do you want to be a student of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you want to be a student? How many of you want to be a student? And by the way, Quran, the word Quran is a beautiful word in itself, right? We all know what it means. It means that book, right? But linguistically, Quran is a book that is read over and 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 over again. That's really what it means. So if we're not reading the Quran over and over and over and over and over and over again, we're not fulfilling the meaning of the word. If we're reading it once a month in a year in Ramadan, then it's not really the Quran for us. If we're reading it only on Fridays, Surah Al-Kahf, then it's not Quran for us. It's supposed to be your companion in this dunya. And now more than ever, because now Shaitan and his armies and his soldiers are more active than ever. They're everywhere, trying to distract you, trying to deceive you, trying to make this world seem like, this is what you should be running after. So the more disconnected you are from the Quran, the more Shaitan and his soldiers are going to get you. The more you're going to forget. So Allama al-Quran. And then Allah says, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ. The second blessing now. Okay? First blessing was teaching us the Quran. Second blessing, so it's like Allah saying, Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran. And then Ar-Rahman خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ means He created the insan. Okay? Why did Allah mention teaching the Quran before the creation? Logically, Allah should say, Ar-Rahman خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ علم القرآن, right? Because you create and then you so you create and then you teach, right? Logically. But Allah's saying, no. I have defined the purpose of the creation before it's created. So the Quran gives us our sense of purpose in this life. And then, so Allah has this, in the Quran, He has, some of us were confused, what's the purpose of my life, right? We always hear this confusing question. What's the purpose of my life? Where do we get that answer from? The Quran. So Allah had to first teach the Quran, and then He created us. You see the order? So that when we're created, we already have a manual that's ready. Like, just an example, iPhone 6 comes out. You think they're going to work on the manual of the iPhone 6 after it's launched as a product? Why not? People won't know how to use it. So usually people who make stuff, they make the manual first and then they make the product. Okay. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made our manual, which is in the Quran, our purpose of our life, and then He got us to existence. I haven't finished yet, but I don't know, it's a break, so let's make a vote. You guys want to take a break, or should we end here, or should we continue for 5 minutes? 5 more minutes. How many of you are up for 5 more minutes? Yeah? Okay, sorry. So insan comes from the root word nesya, which means to forget. So Allah's saying, you know what? You're going to forget. Don't try to be Superman. If you don't stay in touch with the Quran, if you don't become my student, you're going to forget. And when you forget, Shaitan's going to get you. Is that point clear? Moving on. Allamahu al-bayan. Let's finish off with this. So third blessing. So what was the first blessing? Refresh. Allama al-Quran. Number 2. Created us. Number 3. Allamahu al-bayan. He taught him speech and the ability to express yourself. Bayan means to be able to express yourself. Me talking now is proof of this ayah. If Allah didn't teach me how to express myself, would I be able to teach you now?
No.
So the ability to express, the ability to speak, that is called bayan. Okay? The ability to explain, that is bayan. Okay? So now, remember, Allama al-Quran was general, right? Did Allah say who He's teaching the Quran to? But bayan is for who? Specific for who? For human beings. Because, remember, the cat and the dog and the elephant in the class, they can't talk, can they? Can they express anything? No, right? So, oops. Okay. Sorry. So, specific. I got you lost in this roller coaster. So specific to us. Why? Because only we can speak, right? Animals can't speak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is one of His gifts. Imagine, all of you know people who can't speak. How many of you have family members, friends, or someone you know who can't speak? No? Okay, so you feel sorry for them, right? I have a cousin who was like that. She's disabled. Imagine if we all don't have the ability to speak. How would your life be? Not that bad because we have SMS or Instagram and Facebook now, right? But it's a terrible thing not to be able to speak. So one of the blessings of Allah is to speak. Okay? Animals versus humans, I told you. Animals can't speak, we can. So one of the lessons for us is, since Allah taught you how to speak, you better remember to use your tongue to do good things. Don't use your tongue to lie. Don't use your tongue to backbite. Don't use your tongue to make fun of others. Don't use your tongue to spread false rumors. And do people do that today? Yeah. So whenever, and don't use your tongue for foul language. Some people use foul language, they think it's cool, Some people listen to music with foul language and filthy language and shameless language, they think it's cool. Allah's saying, I taught you how to express you. I taught you how to use your tongue and how to speak. And you're using that knowledge for something bad. So it's a big reminder for us. Since Allah taught us bayan, He taught us how to express ourselves, we're supposed to be using it in good things. Is that clear at this point? Last point I'll end with. So we talked about the greatness of the Quran, the first section, right? Number one, Allah is our teacher. Do we want to be His students? Number two, Allah created us after making the Quran. So teaching the Quran is more important than our creation. And then number three, Allah taught us how to express ourselves. Now to wrap this thing up, the best use of a human being's life and speech is to learn and teach the Quran. Since Allah created us, and He taught us how to speak, now Allah wants you to spend this to learn His book, to understand His book, and then to teach it to others. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, beautiful hadith, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best among you. You want to be among the best? How many of you want to be among the best? The best among you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. That's it, He gave it to you. That's the formula. Learn the Quran and then teach it. Okay. Why learn first and then teach? Obviously, right? And learning implies that you implement. Right? Don't just get knowledge and teach without implementing. So learn, implement in your life, and then teach. With that, I conclude. Inshallah, next class we'll do the second section, which is about Allah's favors. Jazakallah khair, subhanakallah wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. And I apologize for keeping you from your brain. Okay? Any questions? All clear?